Many Jews today feel the need for a Jewish Renaissance. People are searching for a more vital and authentic mode of Jewish expression, and more than ever, we need to shift not only physically, but spiritually out of exile mode. This is Torah Nation TV from Jerusalem, and we are speaking with the head of Machon Shilo, Rabbi David Bar-Hayim. Shalom, Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom.
There are those who claim that the earliest mention of the custom of reciting chapter 27 of Tehilim, the David Hashem Orihu Yeshi, from Rosh Chodesh Elul up until and including Hoshana Rabbah, is in the book Hamdat Yamim, first printed in 1732. The author of this book was accused of Sabbatean tendencies. Is this sufficient reason to put an end to the custom of reciting this mizmor?
It goes without saying that the fact that a certain group or even an individual chooses to take a pasuk, a verse from the Tanakh, from the Bible, or an entire chapter, and misinterpret it and claim that it means something which of course it does not and was never intended to mean. If someone takes a part of the Tanakh or anything in Judaism in order to support some foreign ideology or some form of heresy, which is exactly what the heresy of Shabtai Tzvi, the Sabbatean false messiah, that historical episode which is nowadays not very well known amongst most Jews, unfortunately. It goes without saying that no part of the Tanakh or any part of Judaism, no part of authentic Judaism can be considered pasul, that is to say improper or better left alone or ignored because so-and-so chose to misuse it and misinterpret it. So that fact itself is not a sufficient reason to prevent people from saying this mizmor. It also should be mentioned that the Christian world has for nearly 2,000 years been misinterpreting different verses and sections of the Tanakh, of the Bible, to support their own misguided and heretical beliefs, and that too, of course, is no reason for us to relinquish any part of the Torah or of our tradition. On the other hand, historically, if you want to get the historical facts right, it is not true that the first mention of this practice of reciting this chapter 27 of Tehilim during those days from the beginning of Elul to Hoshana Rabbah is from the book Hamdat Yamim. The first mention of this practice is in a book called Shem Tov Katan, which was printed in 1706 by a Polish Kabbalist by the name of Binyamin Benish. Not a very well-known book at all. No one's actually heard of it, more or less, one could say. But this is what the world of research has uncovered. And there he writes that he recommends, as a personal recommendation, perhaps this was his personal practice, to recite this mizmor, this chapter, and he guarantees a person who does so a long life and nothing evil will befall him, etc. And of course it goes without saying, when you make such promises, many people will do almost anything if they feel they're guaranteed such things. And therefore this suggestion of his was picked up by certain books around that time, including the book Hamdat Yamim, which was printed in 1732, 1731, 32, and from there the practice spread more or less like wildfire throughout the Jewish world. These are all, I would say, the less relevant, less important parts of this issue. The real issue is whether extra recitings, extra parts of the Tanakh or extra tefillot, extra prayers should be added to the usual order of prayer for the tzibur, for the community in the Beth Knesset, in the synagogue. It goes without saying that a person may and is even encouraged to say all manner of prayers and recite all parts of the Tanakh, including Tehilim, of course, if he is so motivated and so moved, and that is something that is very wonderful and to be commended. The question is whether this should be done as a fixed and more or less obligatory custom, practice for the tzibur, for the community. On that score, we have a teshuvah and halachic response of the Rambam, Siman Resh Samech Aleph, number 261, in which he points out that only the essential and absolutely obligatory parts of the prayers and the Shema and the Shmoneh Esrei, the essential parts of the prayer book that Hazal instituted to be said in the Beit Knesset by the tzibur, only those are to be said in the Beit Knesset. And the reason, says the Rambam, is very simple. Because a Beit Knesset is for the tzibur, for the community, for the entire community. And in the community you have old people and sick people and people who are in a big rush to get to work, which, by the way, probably covers most of the people who come to Beit Knesset on an average day of the week. And therefore any accretions that appear in the normal order of prayer are going to be tirhadat tzibura. They're going to add time and put people under pressure and cause people to have to leave early or to miss out parts of the tefillah, etc. All these phenomena are undesirable and unnecessary. Anything that a person wants to and wishes to add is wonderful and commendable and should be encouraged, but this should remain a private practice. And this is also the view of the Gaon of Vilna, the Gra, as it is written explicitly in Ma'aseh Rav in two places. One is Siman Nun Gimel 53, and the other is Siman Samech Vav 66, and I wish to read to you a line from Ma'aseh Rav. Here it is discussing Tefillat Arvith, and it says, Ahar alenu en omrim pesukim umizmorim. After alenu l'shabeach, at the end of Tefillat Arvith, nothing should be added, no pesukim and no mizmorim should be said. Kelalo shel davar, the rule, the general principle is, en likbu'a pesukim umizmorim b'tzibur zulat shir shayom. Apart from the what's called the shir shayom, the mizmor of the day, which also I think the Rambam, for example, would not have agreed should be said at B'tzibur, but this the Gra was in favor of. But apart from that, says the Gra, no psukim and no mizmorim should be added to the order of tefillah. That is in Ma'aseh Rav, which is an accurate reflection of the Gaon of Vilna's practices and halachic positions. And in Siman Nun Gimel it says the same thing with regards to Shaharith. It says, Mirosh Chodesh Elul ad Yom Kippur en omerim kapitel. In other words, Perek. One does not say chapter Kaf Zayin 27 during these days. And the reason given is clear, as we just read in Siman Samech Rav of the Gra and Ma'aseh Rav. The reason is not to add anything to the public order of prayer. That has to remain always at the level of the bare minimum as instituted by the Chachamim. Everything else is optional and is wonderful. And particularly the recital of Tehilim, which of course is something that is of paramount importance. Every Jew should feel himself very much connected to the book of Tehilim. Sefer Tehilim is in many ways perhaps the second most important book in the Tanakh after the Hamisha Humshei Torah, the 5 books of Moshe Rabbeinu, as Rav Hirsch points out in the introduction to his commentary on Tehilim. But I would add that even with regards to the recital of Tehilim, it is much, much better that a person recite one perek or even a few pesukim of Tehilim with some commentary, with some perush, which makes it more understandable and more meaningful to him, rather than reciting entire chapters or verses without really understanding the real import and the meaning of the words and the general thrust of what is being said. As it says at the beginning of the Tur and the beginning of the Shulchan Aruch, and the very first siman of the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch, it says it is better to recite little with kavanah, with meaning, with understanding, rather than recite a lot with no understanding or little understanding. Tov lomar ma'at me'asher harbot v'lo kavanah. And therefore, with regards to reciting any particular chapter of Tehillim, not just this particular chapter 27, it's always better to recite Tehillim, or to read or to learn Tehillim. One should use the term to learn Sefer Tehillim, which is something that has to be learned like every other part of the Torah with a commentary. If a person understands Hebrew, then there are many commentaries that one could suggest, starting with the Perush of Rav Sa'ad Dagon and Rashi and the Radak and the Ibn Ezra, etc., etc. The list is almost endless. In English, I would definitely recommend the commentary of Rav Hirsch on Tehillim, which is truly outstanding. At any rate, the long and the short of it is not important which chapter and on which day one recites that chapter. It is more important to fully understand and comprehend what one is saying and to say it from the heart. And that it's not necessarily what we find in shuls nowadays during those days of Elul and Tishrei, when people recite more or less by rote and without much thought this particular chapter of Tehillim. And therefore this custom is food for thought and for reflection for all days of the year, for all our practices regarding tefillah and learning parts of the Torah, where we should concentrate on getting to the real meaning and the depth of what is being said.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Berkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.